right now it's time for our boy, Brooks Austin, Fan Nation Director of Recruiting, Dogs Daily Lead Editor, at Brooks Austin BA on Twitter. I encourage everybody to check out, just go give him a follow on Twitter, his YouTube channel, The Film Guy Network. The way that these guys put the videos together, it really is impressive. Go give them some support. The Film Guy Network on Twitter. Brooks, we say hi, and let's start here. Mario Cristobal. What, dude? Oh. So we were supposed to have an ACC matchup, Miami of Florida at North Carolina. I'm not sure how good North Carolina is. They're undefeated right now, and they're laying 3.5. But let's just start kind of unraveling what happened with Cristobal.
Yeah, so it's like, I think it's first down. There's 38 seconds left on the clock or something like that. Bottom line, under 40 seconds on the game clock, opposition has let 0 timeouts. Science, either football. Like, that's it. We remove all questionable doubt out of the football game, knee the ball. And I've been looking at it. Apparently his offensive line coach was the only guy on the sideline that was, like, jumping up and down like, hey, what are we doing? It kind of goes by the wayside. They end up running the ball. Of course, they fumble. And here's the worst part. I don't know what's worse, the decision, the colossal mistake not to knee the football out, or somehow, some way, figuring out a way to give up 75 yards in 4 plays in 26 seconds when the opposition has 0 timeout. It's like, what in the world? It's one of the biggest colossal losses in the history of college football. I mean, it is bad. And I know social media caught on to it and was like, hey, guess what? Cristobal also did this dumb stuff in 2018 at Oregon, but at least that one was, like, understandable. It was 1.5 minutes left. There was a 2nd and 3. There was like, hey, if we need the ball out all the time, we still have to punt it to them. Still got to play 14 seconds. This was bad. This was as bad as it gets.
Guys, just to substantiate the point that Brooks made right there, in this game, coming into that sequence, the Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck had 76 yards passing. They wound up with 151 on the game. They had 175 yards up until that point, and they wind up with 250 for the game. Just incredible. I don't know how this Miami team recovers. Brooks, you're in the state of Georgia. You covered Georgia very closely. I want to ask you, for people that may not have watched that Georgia-Kentucky game closely, it was a thoroughly dominant performance. This was the first time all year Georgia looked like the #1 team in the country. What was it that you saw out of Kirby's team that made them look so proficient and look like they could go for a three-peat now?
Yeah, I think the offense looked as confident as they possibly could and executed as highly, as efficiently as they possibly could. But this was a defensive-led football team. It has been for years, and we've been waiting around for Georgia's defense to come out and play like them. I think there's been a lot of talk nationally about, Georgia's been starting slow. Georgia only had 17 first-quarter points in the first 5 weeks of the season. Georgia slow this, Georgia slow that. And they were pointing at the offense. Guys, the offense wasn't slow. The defense wasn't getting off the field. They gave up first-quarter possession touchdowns against UAB, South Carolina, and Auburn. 3 offenses that shouldn't be scoring first-quarter possession touchdowns against Georgia. This defense, right? So, like, once they started 3-and-out in Kentucky really quickly, that's that football team that beat the hell out of Oregon to start the football game last year, right? That big monstrosity of a win they had in Mercedes-Benz last year against a ranked Oregon opponent. If you guys go back and look at that start of that football game, they got a punt early to start the football game against Oregon, and then the next 2 offensive possessions for the Ducks were pick, boom. Next thing you know, you're down 21-0. Like, Georgia starts fast historically because the defense, 3-and-outs, turnovers, oppositions, and that was the Georgia we saw again this weekend. They've been offensively great. Hell, Carson Beck's was 14 for 18 on 3rd and 7+ going into last weekend. They've been great offensively. They just been needing to get teams off the field quickly.
Our boy Brooks Austin joins us here. Boys, USC stinks. Now, Brooks, it was late for you on the East Coast. I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning, triple overtime against Arizona. They had every right to lose that freaking football game. My gosh, were they? But that defense is so bad. So bad. And here we go. USC.
Go chasing.
No, you love it. Notre Dame. And to be fair, the Pac-12 has been awesome this year. So I'm not clubbing the Pac-12. It's just USC. Let's talk about this. USC coming off a triple overtime win. Notre Dame coming off the loss there against a very fast and good Louisville team. Notre Dame laying 2.5. Who do you like in this matchup, Brooks?
Man, I really like Notre Dame because they can run the football, and they do it really, really well. I think they're like top 5 in the nation in explosive rates as a running the ball football team. Now, Sam Hartman had a really, really rough week last week, 3 interceptions, and just off to a really slow start. Their drive chart in the first half last week against Louisville make you want to throw up. It's just like, ugh. It might as well be turnovers. They're having such shorter possessions to start the football game. But hey, I think Arizona, give them some credit. The last 2 weeks, they've kind of put out a blueprint on how to slow some of these offenses down that are like historically great in Washington and USC. Last week against Washington, they only gave them 8 possessions. Now, unfortunately for Arizona, Washington managed to score on 7 of those. But like, hey, that's beside the point. They managed to make it a game because they managed offensively to keep it out of their hand. And then against USC this last week, they played what we call dollar defense, right? There's nickel, there's dime, and then there's dollars. Guys, they played 8 defensive backs for most of that football game against USC, and they kind of drove Caleb Williams crazy. So it'll be interesting to see what Notre Dame does this week based off what Arizona did last week. Sometimes when we see defenses give a blueprint, see a lot of teams try to copy it against these really explosive offenses. But I like Notre Dame in this football game because I'm a line of scrimmage guy. If I know you're a little bit better at the line of scrimmage, I'm going to bank on you.
Brooks, let's go to the showdown Saturday in Seattle between Oregon and Washington. Many people may not know this, but Oregon right now just dominant in their point differential against anybody in college football, plus 199 points, have been thoroughly dominant. How do you see this game between Nix and Penix, which could lead one of these guys to New York City for the Heisman finalist?
Hey, that 81-7 drumming against Tijuana Tech or whoever the hell it was probably helped out that scoring margin. I'm just going to say that right now.
You're not wrong.
But no, you're right. They have been extremely dominant. They are the only team other than Georgia, I believe, in the country that are in top 10 in scoring offense and top 10 in scoring defense. So Oregon is built a lot like Alabama, a lot like Georgia. They're going to walk out. They're going to try to play man coverage, right? They're going to try to cover you. They're not going to try to confuse you. They're going to try to beat you. And that'll be an interesting game plan to see if they continue to roll that out against a team like Washington, who, man, I've said it over and over again, with the combination between Michael Penix and that plethora of receiving core that they have, they remind me a lot of last year's Ohio State football team with C.J. Stroud just operating at an extremely efficient rate and teams being like, all right, well, if we're going to beat Washington today, we got to score 45. So that's the question. Can Bo Nix score 45, 48 points against a Washington defense that, you know, might be able to turn him over? I think that's the key to me with Bo Nix. Like, we've seen the 73% completion percentage. We've seen this renaissance man of Bo Nix, this guy who's like completely revolutionized this game from what we saw at Auburn, this turnover-heavy guy. So now all of a sudden he's protecting the football and he's accurate. I don't know. I haven't seen a football team be actually able to make him throw into tight windows yet. We'll be interested to see if it happens this weekend.
Indiana's at Michigan, Big Ten, talking Brooks Austin here, talking a little college football. PJ Fleck said it's the best team he's seen in a long time. How good is Michigan? Michigan's laying 33.5. It's a big number with Indiana in town, but I want your take. How good is Michigan?
They remind me of 2022, 2021 Georgia. Like, they are physical. I think PJ Fleck said it best after the game. They traveled 75 guys against Minnesota. They played 73 of them. Like, that's absurd. They're deep, they're physical, and they're extremely well coached. If you're going to run 73 football players onto the field, you got to have 73 guys prepared. Like, that is a really, really elite coaching staff. And it's funny. I think Jim Harbaugh's got one of the very unique advantages that nobody else in the sport has. His daggone brother's in Baltimore. And if you look at their staffs, they just kind of recycle guys. It's like, hey, this special teams coordinator is getting kind of stale. Oh, don't worry, we'll take them. You know what I mean? It's like they just pick up NFL guys and move them back and forth. They're extremely well coached. They've recruited at an exceptionally high rate. And J.J. McCarthy's elite. Now, my only question is, who's going to put them in a box? Who's going to be able to get in the ring and punch for Michigan this year? Because the moment it happens and they have to play a style of brand of football that they're not comfortable playing, then they kind of get beat. That's what we've seen the last couple of years. So I don't know if this is the weekend. In fact, I don't believe it's this weekend. But no, they've looked extremely dominant, particularly defensively, man. They are cutthroat.
Yep. Just to build upon that question, does it become more of a challenge because their biggest games are in November? They get Penn State, Maryland, and then Ohio State. Does the fact that they play all these three teams 3 weeks in a row make it a different challenge than, let's say, the Buckeyes played Maryland now, they get Penn State next week, and then they get Michigan a month from now?
Pac-12 teams this year are looking at them like, hey, welcome to our strife the last 10 years of this conference. For some reason, the Pac-12 does what the Big Ten did to this team this year, where they stack the end of the conference schedule where it's like, all right, well, we just got to survive, and then in November we're going to get punch drunk for 4 weeks. Like that's what it looks like. But no, it is a very interesting way of stacking a schedule, and it's about surviving. But when you're a Big Ten football team, okay, you kind of know we're a 3-game schedule. Whenever it shows up, we're a 3-game schedule. Wherever those 3 games fall, we might get good luck. We might get good luck this year. We might have bad luck next year, unless you're Michigan and Ohio State, and you know you're playing at the end of the season, no matter what. So I think that's just the way it goes with Big Ten teams. Just like sometimes with SEC teams, it feels like every week. It's not this year. This year they're down bad, but most of the time it feels like SEC teams. It's like, God dang, we got another ranked team coming into our house this week, or daggum, we got to go play a top 10 team again this week on the road. Not necessarily like that this week, but every conference has their struggle. The Big 12, it's like we can get beat. It's like any given Sunday out there. Everybody's either really good or really, really bad.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.